So let us engage with open hearts and open minds. Let us listen, learn, and actively participate in these discussions. For it is through our collective effort that we foster our environments where everyone can thrive. Our next speaker, she is the head of business analysis at Springer Nature Digital Pune. Working on something new every day keeps her motivated. She is an agile and product development enthusiast. With more than a decade of work experience, she is a strong believer in Performance Kaizen. That is making cycles lightweight, engaging, gamifying for individual development. She likes to facilitate meetings and workshops and also conduct sessions on business analysis and agile related topics. She's a travel freak and loves reading, and that was a reunion of her old love during pandemic. She relates to a lot of social causes, and in her free time, you'll find her working on these causes or chilling with her parents and family. As she says, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. Let's welcome Rucha Kapare with her topic, Unlocking Success Through Inclusive Leadership.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. This is the toughest slot for a speaker. Do you know why? Yes, and it's like history is tells it all, right? Like nothing can compete with food. But I will try to make it interesting, and I will try to make the wait worthwhile with some stories. Hello everyone, I'm Rucha. And you'll have to excuse my voice a bit. I was on voice rest for the past 4 days, but I'm glad I'm able to speak. So, a bit about me before we begin. I work with Springer Nature, which is the research publisher. And the lives that we are living in today, be it the technology we use, the vaccines that we take, have been researched by someone yesterday, right? So the lives today are the research of yesterday. Now imagine this research is done by people who are very, very similar. Maybe people from the same geography, say US or some Western country, or say people from a specific gender, or research is done only by the Nobel laureates. What kind of world we would live in, right? We would not be as innovative probably, and we would not have like any groundbreaking ideas. It would be just similar for everyone. And that's exactly what I do. I'm still a technology person, but I work on solving this problem of removing biases from research by using data and technology. So that's me. And what I would like to start with a question, more like a reflective question, not something for you to like answer, but what does it take to be a great leader? You know, and I quite appreciate the way all the talks have been structured, because Hiren, Geeta, and Ajay, you've set like a perfect context for me, and I am pretty glad that I'll not have to explain quite a lot of questions, but let me answer that with a quick story, okay? Imagine you're fresh out of college, and you have secured a job at an MNC, which, say you're like 19 or 20 years old, and you've secured your first job. It is well paying, and you are really very energetic, like what Hiren had mentioned, and you want to do something, you want to change the world, okay? Now, your boss comes to you and the boss says, okay, these are the things that you need to work on, and this person finishes all that work, and now the boss says, okay, you need to submit all this via an email, but you can't write your own name below. And the thing is, it's a shared mailbox, so it is, nobody knows like who has sent out that email. And the boss asks this person to write his own name. How would you feel if you were that person? Cheated? What else? Okay. This person who I was talking about is none other than me. Okay? So this is what happened to me when I had joined. And I was like, okay, it's fine. Coming from a middle class family, had taken a loan for my education, wanted to pay off my loans, wanted to make my parents proud. And of course, I was also scared, a bit feared that, I would leave, not get this job or cannot continue this job if things don't work out. So I did not say anything, but the boss knew better, right? He was highly educated, apparently from a foreign university, had returned back to India, and this is how he made things for me. So I was like, okay, that's fine, let me give in to this. And a couple of months down, he gave me a call saying that, where are you? And I couldn't pick because I was riding my Activa and I was going to work, and it was 9:15 a.m. in the morning, I still remember. And he said to me, Rucha, why are you not in office? So I was like, I was driving, and he had given me a call, say around 9:10, and it was 9:15. So he's like, you should have been in office at 9. I told him that I was working quite late last night because there's some issues, and I was working with the entire team. And he's like, that's not acceptable. And this person had the audacity to say this working from home. And at that time, there was no work from home. His laptop was lying in front of me. So he came to office at 9, 10, 11, whatever it is. Again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have had the flexibility. It's just that he didn't own up what he was saying. And the best example, I was like, okay, let all of this do. I'll still get promoted because I know I'm working hard. And what do you think would have happened on the day of promotion? Why do you think I didn't get it? No, but he was the one who was responsible for. Okay. This is classic, and I have heard this from a lot of people. He said, I didn't give you the promotion because you didn't ask for it. Okay? And this is a repeated pattern. Like, I joined the second organization, and again, a lady manager there, after 2 years of working, she said the same thing to me. The reason I'm telling you all these stories is I just want to know how many of you have ever left your job because of a certain manager or because of a company culture. I've been one of them. Okay, quite a few hands. I'm surprised you people were really very lucky to get good bunch of managers, or either you are very, very hungry.
I have an opposite situation. So I worked in a company in 2000 for like 9 years.
Yeah.
So this is something opposite that
Okay.
were a great manager and great mentor.
I'll come to that, but thank you for raising that. So basically, in my head, I hated and I knew what kind of manager I don't want to be. But having the negation of something doesn't mean you know what the opposite is, right? So speaking of leaders and speaking of organization cultures, do you know who this man is? JRD Tata. And do you know what he is known for? Indian Airlines. What else? Cancer hospitals. He's a visionary. Okay, quite a lot of things actually. So he, along with Jamshedji Tata, long list. Tata Motors, there's TIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, father of Indian aviation, Cancer Research Hospital, Tata Airlines. But the house of Tata, along with the leaders, is also known for having the first pension fund schemes, having the first provident fund schemes, having the first accident schemes for employees. So there used to be mills like Nagpur, Tata Mills in Nagpur, where they started all these things on campus. They started a school for children who brought tiffins to their mothers, and mind you, this is in the 1800s. Okay, this is way, way, way before. And he started night schools for adults who were working there throughout the day. He started a provident fund for them. Unheard of. Gyms for exercise, for the total mental well-being. And of course, the Provident Fund scheme was also later adopted by the government of India, which was a big achievement. And Sudha Murthy's story, I'm just like, it feels like a deja vu moment where everything is coming together. So Sudha Murthy's story, I'm pretty sure most of you would have heard, right? Like, she felt she was discriminated against, and then she wrote she didn't know who was the head of telco, and she just said, like, address this postcard to JRD Tata because she knew he was some head. And then she got the interview opportunity. Of course, she had to prove herself. So all these stories have made a lot of rounds, but the story that I like the most is my story. It's not my story really, it is my father-in-law's story. A young boy then, I think staying in a village border of Maharashtra and Gujarat, he was studying his chartered accountancy in Mumbai, and he was waiting at a bus stop for a bus. And you can imagine the struggles, right? Like young, this is almost like 50, 60 years ago. And a car was passing by, and in that car, the car stopped by. In that car, it was JRD Tata. And he's like, why don't you get in? And he introduced himself. And my father-in-law was like, no, I have to go some other way. He's like, that's not a problem. I can drop you off. So he gave him a lift, and he asked about his whereabouts, like what are his plans, what does he plan to do in the future, and things like those. So all these things tell how grounded he was as a person as well. And that made me think about, I just did like a Google search on what are the qualities of leaders, specifically JRD Tata, right? And all these words came up, like adaptability, innovation, visionary, empathy, ethics, inclusivity, commitment, excellence, forward thinking. All these qualities are something that are qualities an inclusive leader possesses. But what does inclusion mean? And I think we have had like enough definitions since the morning, but I'm going to do a quick recap. So basically, diversity is all ways in which we can be different, always. So let me again tell you a quick story. The movie Titanic, how many of you have seen it? Quite a lot of people. I was not allowed to see it because I was in school for obvious reasons, okay? But all that I knew was, there's an iceberg, and an iceberg is 7 times of what you see it above the water, below the water, right? And as kids, you can imagine, right? You keep on discussing such things and how fantastic it would be to go and see an iceberg and stuff like that. And the way I relate to that story is we humans are just like that. What you see is just one part of me. There's 7 different layers to me. It might be because of my social upbringing, my financial background, the gender I am, maybe the state that I lived in, the environment was there in my family. So diversity is not just gender, diversity is not just age, there are multiple facets to it. And inclusion on the other hand is, irrespective of all these differences, how is it that we can come together and not just thrive, but excel? And equity, of course, I think, ma'am, you've explained it really very well. It is not giving everyone equal, it is giving everyone enough so that they are on the same leveling field. And there's a beautiful picture on this on Google where there's a wall and people are trying to see a match. So you can find that later. So that's inclusion, but why is it needed and why is everyone talking about it? Like since morning, I've not seen a single person who's not spoken about it. And the reason for that is, and this is again a picture from a book called as Unconscious Biases, is imagine you're at a place where you feel that you're being tolerated or someone is blankly ignoring you. How do you feel? Dejected, right? Versus now think of a place where people make you feel respected, they make you feel valued. It makes a whole lot of difference. Trust me, salary is important, awards are important, but 10 years down the line, you won't even remember how much your salary was or how much, what award did you get, but you will always remember how someone made you feel. That feeling never goes away. And the most important thing here is when people are respected, included and valued, they get into a high performing zone. It is a win-win for the individual and it is also a win-win for the organization because individuals form these organizations, right? And if you remember, customers were the center of everything before, now it is the employees because the employees interchangeably are also your customers in a way. So that's what we looked at inclusion. We looked at why it is needed. Now let's talk about inclusive leadership. So basically it's the capacity to manage and lead a heterogeneous group of people, which is like not similar while respecting their unique qualities in an empathetic and bias-free way. It's a style of leadership that rules out discrimination, any bias and favor, and allows the employee to feel valued. And what is the need to be feel valued? Again, if you look at the need of hierarchies, we were taught this in school, right? What are the basic needs? Food, shelter and clothing. At least everyone remembers that, right? Roti, kapda, makan. But apart from that, if you look at it, safety, which could be like physical or psychological safety, comes right after that. And the need to belonging and love comes right after that, which is much more important than any esteem or designation or a title that you can have. And when I speak of leadership, trust me, I'm not speaking about a title that someone gives you. It is something that you feel. It is something that you make others feel, irrespective of whether you've been given that title or not. And I assume, and I would say strongly that all of us are leaders. And the reason why inclusive leadership is needed is forget about everything. Forget about DE Act. Forget about love, respect. There are 4 trends that are changing the world economics right now. The first one is markets and the diversity of markets. The reason I say that is, if you look at the world geography, all the markets which used to be like established markets, like the US and Western countries, are not performing as well. Like even in publishing industry where I come from, the share of Western countries is going down, and the share of emerging markets like China, India, and specifically countries from Asia is going up. And 50% of this world market is middle class. And they are rising to power, and when their purchasing power increases, that's where everyone wants to go. The second is diversity of customers. It said that customers vote with their feet, right? Customers can walk away if they don't like anything. And today, the customers have even more power. And the reason for that is they have digital literacy in their hands. They are spoiled for choices, and apart from that, the level of customization that is provided, you have such a diverse set of customers that it becomes very difficult to look at what are the things that you need to do. Third, the diversity of ideas. Everyone is in a race to get ideas which are groundbreaking from people. And fourth is the diversity of talent. And I need not reiterate a lot about this. I think all of us are struggling. The level of education people have got, it has created so much mobility in terms of higher education. Also, the millennials are making the workforce, almost 50% of the workforce that is right now are millennials. And their way of working is completely different. They believe in different concepts which are like work-life balance. They want to work which has some value in it and things like those. So now imagine you are a manager. You have to deal with all these things. There's diversity of market, there's diversity of customers, ideas and talent. And all these 4 global trends individually and together are setting the context which is much more diverse than what it used to be. So if we don't act to it, I think we will miss the bus. And these trends are influencing the business priorities, are also the leadership capabilities that are required in the future. So far, clear, we have established that inclusive leadership is good, right? But this is all like known. How do you actually become one? Can you become one? Is it possible? Well, the good news is, yes, you don't have to be born as inclusive leaders. You can become one, and there are certain traits that you have to acquire. So this is a snapshot from a paper. And these traits are cognizance, and we'll go through each of them one by one. One is cognizance of bias, having the courage, commitment, collaboration, cultural intelligence, and curiosity. So let's go through each of these one by one. The first one is cognizance of bias, okay? I ask this question a lot of times, and I'm going to ask you the same question. When you picture a scientist, like if you close your eyes for a few seconds and you picture a scientist, what are the things that come to your mind? Just any describing words, adjectives? Okay, geek, lab, lost, long hair, research, what else? Belief, okay. How many of you pictured a man? Okay, Einstein. Mostly a man, right? See, these are how deep-rooted our biases are. Is there anything wrong in it? Probably not. Biases help us take shortcuts. It's the brain's way of thinking. What is important is you acknowledge these biases, right? And a good leader has cognizance of their biases. They are mindful of the personal and organizational blind spots. So as a leader, knowing your bias is the most important thing you can do, and there are a few biases that I'm going to talk about. The first one is affinity bias. You walk into a room, how many times do you go and sit at a place where you think people are similar to you? Right? Like, of course, there should be enough space available as well. Or how many times have you hired someone because they are just like you? So that's affinity bias. And I'm not saying everyone has all these, but we have all these in some combination. Then there's a confirmation bias. For example, I'm thinking of buying a car, okay? And my husband and I, we have shortlisted like 5 cars. And nowadays, I'm seeing the one that I like most often on the roads. It is not because these cars were not there on the road. It's just that now I want to validate my belief, which is a confirmation bias. Third one is proximity bias. And this is very, very important for leaders who operate in a global setting. We are very, very biased towards the people of the location or any activity that is happening in our immediate locations. Fourth one is a bandwagon effect. And this one is also very interesting, groupthink. Just because everyone is agreeing to, I'm going to say yes, else I will be the bad person in the room, so I'm not going to question. Period, let a decision be made. Fifth one, my favorite, recency bias. How many times have you heard people say, it's October, let's not mess with things. The performance cycle is coming up, right? And even if people want to take some risks, people would think of things like, Jan mein kiya hota to chal jata tha, which is essentially, had you have done this in Jan, it would have been fine, but the manager is going to remember. So people are smart. People know that you also have like a recency bias, and there are many, many more. So that's about biases, and it is important you acknowledge these biases. The second trait here is commitment. So one is, and we have also touched base upon this, forget about how others are going to behave. Commit to your own values first. That is very, very important. And you need to commit to something as an individual. So one is leaders should commit to the value of fair and respectful treatment to others. That's one. And second is leaders should believe that there is a business case for DEI. So the first one I'm not going to touch base on as much, but the second one I'm going to talk about the business case, and here again I have an interesting story. But before that, let's look at some numbers, because I'm a data person and I also know that if I throw some numbers in your face, you'll believe my story a little more better. So there's enough research done on it that the case of DEI, the business outcomes are 8 times higher. The teams perform 6 times better, there's 6 times better innovation and agility, and there are 2 times more financial targets met. But the example that I want to give you is PWD, which is people with disabilities. People with disabilities form 1.5 billion of the world's population, okay? Now imagine if you're building products, not just for them, but with them. So if you have people on the team, you are going to capture the sentiments, and if you build like amazing products, you're not just going to capture the sentiments of the people with disability, but their family and friends as well, which is almost around 3.5 billion people in the world. That's more than half the world's population. And another thing is, as you age, as you cross the age of 60, you tend to acquire one or more disability. right? And when I say disability, it could be any form of disability. It could be something related to your mental health as well. So, and these senior citizens have a lot of money to dispose because they've earned for their retirement. Forget about DEI. If you don't cater to this group of customers, you are burning and throwing away millions of dollars of money. So there is definitely a business case. In some countries, there's also a legal case that you have to comply with certain things. But the most important thing is it has a social case. To treat someone with respect and fairness should be the most basic thing that we do to each other and to ourselves. So there is definitely also a business case. The third thing is courage. Highly inclusive leaders speak up and challenge the status quo. They are humble about their strengths and weaknesses. So humility, I think, is very, very important. Just because someone is a leader, they are not know-it-all. You have to acknowledge that. You need to become vulnerable, and there are multiple ways in which you can do it. Like in my organization, I hold conferences which are called as fail conferences. Like you come there, you talk about your failure and you're learning from it. You don't always have to fail yourself. You can also learn from others' failures. And I make it a point that I invite leaders specifically for this conference. And the reason for that is, if your leader is vulnerable, it makes them more human. People can connect with them better. So having that humility is important. Challenging the status quo. And when I say challenge, it is not always challenging the system. It is not always challenging the other person. It is also always challenging yourself as a leader. It's very important. And be brave as a change agent. So that's courage. Fourth one is curiosity. And I think someone spoke about Dell in the morning. One of Dell's CEO had once said, if there's only one quality that I would want in a leader, it would be curiosity. If you're not curious as a person, if you are not willing to understand what are the 7 layers of the person, I'm not saying the other, you need to know every 7 layer, but at least acknowledging the fact that there could be 7 layers to this person is what curiosity is all about. Understanding that there's not only one way of doing things, there could be different perspectives, and acceptance of ambiguity. We live in a world where things change not even every day, every moment. So you need to be comfortable with ambiguity. The second last one is cultural intelligence. Again, we are living in a global world, right? You work with people from the US, you work with people from Australia, China, and a lot of different countries and a lot of different regions from within India. So you need to understand that there are always going to be cultural differences and there are going to be similarities. How do you play positively with these and how do you leverage these? It's very, very important. And then you also need to adapt your style. You need to understand your culture. You need to understand someone else's culture as well better. And the last but not the least is collaboration. And here as well, you can make a difference as a leader. It's not something that someone else is controlling. Empower people. It's very, very, very important. Once you empower them, not namesake, give them accountability. Okay? Give them accountability. And the third most important thing is create a psychological safe space for them. If you give them accountability, if you empower them, but if you penalize them after whatever they have done, then that's not going to work. We had a team set up in the organization saying that it is the innovation team. Innovation is an outcome. If you don't provide a psychological safe space, people will never experiment. And if they don't experiment, you are never going to be an innovative organization. Never ever. So having a psychological safe space is also very, very important. And then sometimes you need to include explicitly. It's very important again. But why am I even talking about all these things, right? I started with my personal story. And then I spoke about these 6 traits, which are cognizance, curiosity, cultural intelligence, courage, commitment, and collaboration. Is because 10 years later, and that's me now, 10 years before, I wanted to quit. Remember? I didn't like the boss, I didn't like the work, and I cried every day coming home, but I also never spoke about it to anyone. And then I got an opportunity where the manager that I worked for And I first thought that he doesn't care about anything that's going on. Like he had just given us the space to work on things. He used to tell us what to do, like what outcome he wants, but not necessarily how to do it. And I was like, this person doesn't care a lot. And then I realized he never also gave me answers for things. Like he always cross-questioned me on the question that I asked. And I'm like, what pathetic, like I need some answers to things. And he's like, you go and figure out your own stuff. So I started understanding his style of working, and I had some ideas. I just joined as a business analyst back then, and I was like, this is great, I think our organization will highly benefit from it. And he said, Rucha, you know what, why don't you go and talk to our CEO about it? And I was like, really, are you crazy? How can I go and speak with the CEO of the organization? He's like, why not? I'm like, I don't even have access to go there. He's like, okay, I'll get the access sorted for you. Like we had a weird thing, we had a separate access to go to the CEO's cabin. And he persisted, I did not. And eventually I gave in and I went and spoke about that idea to the CEO. Fast forward to 10 years and I was reporting into this very CEO. And I'm not saying that I started reporting to him because I made that idea. The reason is this person, this leader, enabled me. He gave me the courage. He made me so fearless that I can go and present my ideas. And today, if I have to talk to anyone, I would go and do it. I wouldn't be scared. If I know my idea has merit, I would still go and do it. And like he's still my mentor, doesn't work in the same organization. A couple of days back, he said, you know what, Rucha, I would want to report into you someday. And I was taken aback. I was like, how is that possible? And he said the same thing again. Why not? And trust me, it takes such a lot of courage for a leader who I consider as my mentor to say that. So that's my leader 10 years ago when I started. And there's another leader that I work with right now. She's a fantastic lady. Every meeting that I go to sometimes, I've made to feel like, maybe I don't belong here because sometimes I've been told you're too young, sometimes I've been told that, it's maybe a place not for a lot of people like you. But this person, she's always trusted in me. In spite of everything that has happened, she's always had my back. She has made my opinion heard. She has valued my opinions. I'll not talk a lot about her, but she's the person we read about in books. So the reason I had said that navigating and unlocking success through inclusive leadership is, I feel whatever success that I've had today in my life is because of leaders like this. So in the first half, I knew how not to become a leader. But that doesn't teach you how to become a good one. And these are the people who have taught me about how to become a good leader. And how do you remember these people, right? I also remember the first boss. And I also remember the second boss. The question here is, how are you remembered, right? Do you want to be remembered as the first person or the second person? And the question to you is, do you want to be a leader who makes a difference? If yes, then these are some takeaways for you. The first and the foremost is acknowledge that biases exist. We are all humans. Lead by example, walk the talk. Do not talk the talk. Understand the different perspectives. Being intentional is the key. Challenge the status quo. And the most important thing is empower, create accountability, and have those psychological safe spaces for everyone. That's pretty much from me. Thank you so much. But there's one activity in the end. Let's take that activity. I can promise you it's going to be an eye-opening activity. When I did it for the first time, I had a lot of aha moments. Of course, it is not something I created. It has always been there. But I think it is a very, very revealing, thought-revealing activity. So it's called as My Trusted Six. I think you have some sheets in front of you. If you don't, a quick show of hands, and then I'll pass those. I think we don't have sheets here on this table. Yeah, can I just get one? Okay, I'll lead you through the activity. Trust me, last thing, and you're off to dinner, lunch. I won't keep you waiting. So basically, I'll not tell you what it is about immediately, but think of 6 people. Think of 6 people in your life who you go to for taking opinions in your personal or professional life. Just think of 6 people. If you are too lazy or tired or hungry, at least think of 3 people. Okay? So, and write them on the extreme left. So, you see numbers 1 to 6. Think of 6 people who you trust and you would go to for your personal or professional opinions or for decision making. Trust me, you won't regret it. It's just a 2-minute activity. Write the name of 6 people who you trust and who you would go to for getting opinions in your personal or professional life. Okay, a quick show of hands if you are done. Just the names, nothing else. Okay, people are really thinking hard. Okay, I'm going to wait for a few more hands to go up. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now what you do is, for the first person, and I'm going to give an example. So I'm going to take my mother's example. Her name is Shailaja. Does the gender of the person and your gender, is it same? If it is same, leave it blank. Okay. Only if it is different, put a cross. So my mother's gender and my gender is the same, so I'm going to leave it blank. Moving on, is the profession of the person same or different to yours? My mother's profession is very, very different, so I'm going to put a cross. Cross for difference. If it is same, you leave it blank. My mother's age is very different to mine, of course. You can consider a leeway of plus minus 5 years. Okay. Her marital status is same as mine, so I'm going to leave it blank. Her education qualification is very different to mine, so I'll put a cross. And last, whether like she's differently abled or is there a disability, and mind you, this could be both physical and mental. If you know, if you are aware, and not all disabilities can be seen. If it is same, you keep it blank. If it is different, you put a cross. Okay? And now repeat this activity for person number 2 and person number 3. And if time permits, you can do it for all the other people as well. If you don't want to do it immediately for all the people, that's still fine. I have the instructions at the back. I'm going to give you a few seconds to complete this for person number 2 and person number 3. Okay, and now the last one from me. You don't have to reveal the answers, but count the number of crosses. Count the number of crosses and keep the number to yourself. That is basically count the number of differences. Okay, so I will tell you my experience of doing this activity. When I did this activity for the first time, it was an eye-opener for me, because what I realized is I make my decisions and then I go to people for confirmation. I don't want to hear what I want to. I've made my mind, and it's not an ego thing necessarily, all of us are like that. Maybe I was egoistic then, but then I realized that I will never grow if I don't have different perspectives in my life. Would I want to change or not is a different thing altogether. I'm not saying that having similar people in your life is wrong. If you consciously are doing it, great. But if you are unconsciously doing it, this activity reveals it. And you can do it with 10 people. You can do it with n number of traits. Like I chose this on the internet, you'll easily find it. But basically what it helps you reveal is, I came from place X to place Y. If I want to grow out of this bubble and move to place Z, I will want to challenge myself, and these are the people who will challenge me. If I just go to similar people, it's not going to happen, right? Those are my revelations. Does anyone want to share their experience? You need not reveal the number of crosses, but any aha moments or any insights from the activity? Yes, Sanjay. Okay. 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 Thank you for sharing.
I think same is with me what Ajay said. So I think it may be unconsciously, consciously we end up, if I'm in a kind of in a profession, so I may end up connecting with same kind of people. Until unless those are maybe my childhood friends, they may be in a different profession.
Right.
But that's what I, obviously except your family member.
Yeah, that's true. And thank you so much for sharing. I think, again, it needs a lot of courage and vulnerability to come and talk about it. And there's nothing wrong in having similar people. All that, it should be a conscious choice and you should be aware of it. That's the most important thing. I don't want to keep you. We just have 1 minute. Thank you so much. I am open to take any questions if there's time now, or I am available during the lunch as well. You've been a wonderful audience and thank you so much for bearing with my voice.
Thank you, Rucha. Do we have any questions?
I think lunch it is.
Yeah. Okay. So isn't it wonderful to hear such interesting stories from all the speakers since morning? Yeah, it includes diversity, inclusion, equity, and all the other forums that we want to discuss. Okay, I will also not keep you waiting for the lunch break, but may I know who did some workout before coming to this event today in the morning? Okay, there are a lot of hands. So, okay, I'll go with the odd one out here. So maybe we can have Gargi on the floor, please. And let's give a token of appreciation to Rucha. Thank you for all the information that you shared with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So, yeah, lunch is open for you all. Please